Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of PixlFeed Radio, and I'm here with my friend Emily McGuire. Emily, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. It's a beautiful summer day here in Michigan, so I can't complain.
Yeah, usually it's like freezing over there. I'm in Florida, so I'm used to
Uh-huh.
it. Not the freezing, but the heat.
Yeah.
Anyway, for those of you that don't know, she's an email marketing expert. She has her own agency that specializes on email marketing. And she has over 20 years of experience when it comes to email and copywriting and all that good stuff. So I'm super excited to talk to her because I've been doubling down on my email game in the past couple months since the iOS 14 update. I was like, all right, we're getting hit from every side here. We need to double up on the back end. So I'm really excited to talk to you today. Emily, before we get started, we get into, the details of email and all that stuff. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your background? How did you start when you were a kid? Were you doing like side hustles with copywriting or anything like that, or creative writing? Did you like to write papers in school? How did it all start?
Yeah, so I've always been a writer. I wrote little stories as a kid and poetry, and I've always had that with me. And I minored in creative copywriting in college. But yeah, so in terms of, 20 years of experience, that's the cumulative experience that my team has in marketing and communications. And I got into social media, and like a lot of people in social media, I had email thrown on my plate, and they were like, "You do the internet, you can do this too, right?" And it's like, okay, sure. So uh,
Hold
that was
on. Were you working with an agency at first, and that's what happened?
no. So I was actually in house at a business in North Carolina. I was living there at the time, and it is a specialty food store that had like a cooking school and a restaurant and all the stuff. And so they were expanding across the Southeast.
Right.
So I was helping them expand into new markets with their social media. And, the email stuff was just sort of limping along, like sort of going for it. So they were just like, "Oh, you can do this, right?" And I was like, "Okay, let's give it a
Social
shot."
media, how hard can it be, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, I learned email like most people, which is through Google. I Googled everything and was lucky enough that I was able to go to a ton of conferences and really dig deep into the subject. Because then I got a job at another company that was a large e-commerce company, and I was only doing email on a team of 5. Like there were 5 of us just doing email.
There's 5 of you just doing email. Okay, so this is no joke about an e-commerce company. Can you say
Yeah.
that? You can't say the brand, can you?
I mean, I can, but I don't know how many people would. So it's an adult toy retailer.
Okay, well, trust me, no one cares here. Like, if you watch my channel, like I curse like every other word, and it has to get bleeped out and everything.
Yeah.
Really? Well, yeah. I mean, no. That's good. This is good information because you can't advertise adult toys on Facebook or Google, right?
It's
So,
very difficult. Like you have to be very careful with how you do it. So,
oh my God, I'm so gonna dig into that. But let's keep going. So you did that with a team of 5. So it's a big company.
Yeah, and they were doing. I mean, the company's been around for 40 years, so really experienced people with direct marketing, and I learned so much from them on the direct marketing side. And
People think when they hear like adult, it's like, oh man, it must be crazy in there. It's like, no, it's just an office like any other. They just
it
sell
is.
products. Everybody does it. Like, who
Yeah.
cares? It's just products.
Yeah, you just use language that most people will get fired for.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys had a lot of fun though.
Yeah, for sure. And but yeah, so we were cranking out a ton of emails, making most years the email team was bringing in $20 million a year in revenue, and so it's a lot to manage. And
how big was their email list? Do you remember, like ballpark?
Yeah, so we were at about almost 2 million.
So see, guys, I tell you all the time, the email list is the most important thing in your business, and you guys just brush it off. It's all math.
Yeah.
So $20 million just in email. If that doesn't make you, take care of your email, I don't know what will. But anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So eventually, I had a kid, and my husband and I moved back to Michigan where our families are.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking around for a new job, and everybody wanted a generalist who could do, a unicorn who could do everything for
Yeah.
nothing. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to create my own job. So that's how this whole thing was born. I made my own job,
That's awesome.
and have since adapted what I learned, really digging deep into email, to businesses of all size, all industries, and verticals. So, and growth stages too, right? So
Yeah.
every email program is different. It depends on your sales cycle. Like in the e-commerce world, you can have a sales cycle that's 5 minutes long, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the
Yeah.
B2B world, you can have a sales cycle that's 18 months long.
Right.
So, like, the strategies vary so widely, but it's fun to adapt and problem solve and play along the way.
Yeah, and that's what I really want to get into, the adult side of things, that company, because that's a big hurdle. And it's like, I mean, if you can overcome all the hurdles that go in there when it comes to like marketing in general, I mean, you're pulling those kinds of numbers of email. What are you guys looking at? Like, how do you segmenting your audiences, when it's a list that big, and, to try to bring all that revenue?
Yeah, so it's something I talk to a lot of people about now, because personalization is such a big deal in email, because you do have that opportunity to really speak one-to-one with folks, because you have all this first-party data at your fingertips.
Right.
The problem then becomes, depending on how many products you're selling, or how much data you have, how big your database is, it gets really hard to parse it down in an efficient and profitable way. So how I learned it and how I walk my clients through it is buying stage, right? Because especially, if you are an e-commerce company and you have, I don't know, 100, 1,000, 20,000 products, how do you personalize an experience with a constantly rotating inventory, and really honing in on the exact products you can help people find at such a mass scale? So buying stage, parsing out your people who have never bought from you versus people who have bought from you, like those are two different audiences.
Yeah, segmenting.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, even down that line is going to be the most efficient and profitable way to go, because your prospects need a little bit more nurturing than your buyers do, right? Your prospects need more incentive for that first purchase than your customers do.
Right.
So those require two different strategies, and I see most people not even consider that, right? They're offering the same offers and discounts to both groups, and you don't need to do that, right? You can save some money.
But at what point do you start segmenting those audiences? Like, how big does your list need to be at a minimum for you to start segmenting those audiences? Because when people are starting out and they have like 500 or 1,000 or 3,000, I mean, do you take it that far right off from the get-go? I mean, I'm sure you don't deal with like little companies like that anymore, but for those that are starting out, is that something you recommend right from the get-go?
I mean, that's going to be more lift than you need, right? From the beginning, because you're trying to scale still. You're just getting going.
Mm-hmm.
The best segmentation I can recommend to people who have a list under, let's say, 5,000, is your welcome sequence, right? However people are signing up for your list, you personalizing those sequences based on the sign up source is your best segmentation, right? So whether or not it's a discount or a general newsletter sign up, or you have a specific lead magnet or quiz, really personalizing those experiences and segmenting there is going to be a much more efficient lift.
Yeah. So when you guys were doing the adult brand, what was the hosting service? So because I'm sure there was words in there that the spam blockers would just block left and right. Or how did you guys go through all those hurdles?
Yeah, so I mean, and this is the thing when you're working, especially in a taboo industry,
Mm-hmm.
where people talk about best practices and things to avoid. When you start testing, those things don't hold up all the time, right? And so, like, we would be getting recommendations about best practices and all these things, but when we would test them, they didn't hold up as well. So, so we Gosh, I already forgot your original question. God.
Hurdles with like spam filters and stuff like that with adult stuff. Yeah. It happens to me. Don't worry.
Yeah. So back to spam filters and why this is relevant. So, people talk about avoiding particular words in your subject line because those can trigger spam filters. That's really old advice, right?
Is it? Okay.
Like the word free. Everybody says don't put the word free in the subject line. Almost every subject line had the word free in it, or at least one a week, right? And we didn't see those kind of spam traps in that way. And, or, risky words. I mean, I put the word but in a subject line all the time. And we wouldn't see any significant increase in spam folder placement, right? So it's really hard to track down the real causes of deliverability issues. But, in recent years, that kind of so deliverability is what email marketing people call inbox placement. So your ability for your email to A, get delivered to somebody's email address, and B, end up in their inbox folder instead of the spam folder. So more recently, that's determined by engagement, right? So how old is the email address? If it's new, it's going to be seen as riskier. How many people have interacted with the IP address where your email is coming from? So that all gets tracked. And if your subscribers are registering more opens from your emails, clicks, engagement in general, you're going to be seen more as a safe sender. So you're going to have a better chance of ending up in the inbox. So it's more about engagement than like words that might trip a spam filter, right?
But it's not always perfect because I have somebody I'm in a list for somebody, online marketer, and we know we like to push the envelope. And he's always in my spam folder. And I told Google a million times, not spam. And I have like its own folder for that person. Yeah. I'm like, I always move it and it's labeled and everything. And sure enough, I open the spam folder and it's always in there. I'm like, dude, you destroyed your IP at one point.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, people can have their sender reputation destroyed, like you said, from using unsafe sending practices in general. And that'll mess things up for you.
Yeah. So, all right. So that's cool. So let's talk about e-commerce. So, let's say I'm starting a store, zero. I'm running the ads or whatever, influencers, and we're starting to get our traffic. People are starting to sign up. So, what's the basic setup that you always have ready to go before you launch a store?
For a basic setup for email?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously sign up forms on your website.
Yeah.
In the footer, definitely minimums, because then that's static across your entire site. Having a pop-up of some kind. People say that pop-ups are annoying, but they can be set up so that they are not annoying.
I prefer to do it on exit intent, and I tested it in one of my stores, and actually exit intent had a higher conversion than just popping right away for like amazing. A few seconds. Yeah.
And that kind of stuff can vary for people depending on the brand or the audience. And then having something to incentivize an email sign up. So whatever that is for you, if your e-commerce business is not one where you have significant margins, maybe a discount doesn't make sense for you. So can you offer something else, like exclusive access to whatever, tips, tricks, new products, whatever it is?
What's your favorite discount? Do you have like a number that works best that you tested a million times over?
I mean, so the discount, again, it depends on how much of a hit you can take, how comfortable you are with that. It also, you have to be aware of like really setting the stage and expectations for discounts in the future. So like if you are not a brand that can afford to do a lot of discounts, just be careful with it, right?
Right.
And so anyway, so anywhere between 10 and 25% off one item is a great incentivizer, especially for a first-time buyer. So that's something that I usually recommend people start with. Again, depending on what kind of hit they can take on margins, and then test from there.
Okay, so the sign up, but what about like the sequences on the back end? Obviously, you have a welcome sequence, post purchase sequence, browse abandonment, add to cart abandonment. Besides those, is there any other flows or sequences they always have ready to go in a new brand or new store, or when you take over and they don't have anything?
Yeah, so those are the foundational ones. So definitely a welcome sequence. And making sure that people remember that about the offer that you gave them at sign up, and repeating that offer. So a lot of people don't do that. They're just like, oh, here's your discount. Okay, by the way, follow us on social media or do this or do that.
I do that. Well, in my defense, and there's a series about the new brand I just launched, and I'm still in charge of the email because I'm doing it all myself to show people like, how to do it yourself. And eventually I'm going to hand it off to someone. But I mean, when I open the email, like when I open Klaviyo and I'm looking, I'm like, fuck. Like, what am I going to do? Like, I already know the basics, but I'm like, what's my offer going to be for post purchase? And, it's I can do copywriting, but I hate it. But I'm good at it, which it's like, it's like 50-50. It's good and bad at the same time because I'm good at it and I can, write with the best, but I hate opening the blank, file in front of me and just like, okay, where do I start? And I just start typing random stuff and then I have to put it all together. And the difference between me and a good professional copywriter, which that's what they do for a living, is that they could probably put the same thing together in an hour and it'll take me 8 hours for me to put it together just because, with swipe files and try to put the Lego bricks together, it just takes me forever. And I'm very picky about the way, that I, the structure that I follow. So mine is right now on the new store. It's super basic. It's like, thank you for signing up, blah, blah, blah. And then, a discount at some point and that's it. Like, haven't evolved on it yet. That's, laziness on my end because that's not what I do for a living. I'm just doing it for myself for right now. But so you keep following up with them on the discount.
Yeah. So the discount, so it doesn't have to be like an email solely dedicated to the discount, but they do need to be reminded that they have a coupon code that's waiting for them, right? That they signed up for if they didn't take advantage of it right away.
Right.
So like that, and basically, thinking about your welcome sequence as if you were greeting somebody who entered your store, right? Like, come look at this department or this section, right? Here are all of, like, let's say it's a clothing brand, here are men's items, here's women's items, here, check out our latest products or bestsellers, right? So really showing people a sampling of what you have so that you can also like direct them back to your website and like start gathering more information about them. So now you can see what categories are they browsing, where are they abandoning, how you can keep following up. So that's a mistake I see people make with welcome sequences. But yeah, definitely welcome sequence, abandon cart. Also making that a series. Don't just do one email. Abandon browse, really thinking about that one too. How are you, are there specific products that or categories you want to segment a little bit more with your abandoned browse. And then, yeah, like you said, your post-purchase, really nurturing people into the product that they just purchased, giving them more information about it, and then also having a return buyer offer, right?
Okay.
Or a returning customer offer. And then a final one that a lot of people don't think about is, re-engagement campaigns. And of course, you don't really need that right when you launch, but, eventually your new subscribers or your new buyers will eventually disappear, right? They'll ghost, even though they're hanging out on your list. So how are you going to re-engage those folks too?
Okay. And then another question that I have, because I'm thinking as you're talking to me, telling me this stuff, is like one thing that I realized real quick is that whenever I sent emails, I would just pick the products and Klaviyo and just send it out like, okay, here's some products, whatever, here's what's trending. And then like as I started, because this new brand, it's what I call my real brand, because we manufacture everything. Everything's done in-house, like everything. So I was like, okay, I want everything to be perfect. And I'm looking at the emails and I'm like, my emails don't look like my competition's emails. Those are like, it's mainly targeted towards women. So I'm like, those are really pretty and mine suck. So I need to figure this out. So let me ask you something. How do you guys make emails look so good? Are you using like graphic design, correct? Like it's creating everything on a graphic design with like Canva, Photoshop, Trello. How do you guys make it look so good? Because when you open Klaviyo, it's just like you type and it looks like something from 1999, right?
Yeah, so you can use a mix of, so a lot of people will do graphics only, including the text on top of them. But I really caution people about doing that and making sure to be careful about it, just because, text on an image, embedded in an image, does not scale on mobile devices, right? Like it shrinks
Right.
on a mobile device, and it might not be legible on a mobile device, even if it was on a desktop device.
Right.
So a lot of people forget that part.
Yeah.
And so if your text isn't legible on a mobile device, like, how are they supposed to figure out what to do?
I know. I tell people all the time, even with the website's designed for mobile first, but
right. So, and, not everybody has images enabled on their phones. So, make sure to include alt text on those images, because also it's an accessibility issue for folks who depend on text to speech readers if they have low vision. And so those text to speech readers cannot pick up the text that's on an image, right?
Right.
Or that was designed into the image. So that's not ADA compliant. So I just like to give that caveat there. The other thing is so email coding is a thing. There are people out there who are email developers who specialize in email code. So and email code is different than website code. It's all HTML, right? But for email, it's a really old school way of developing HTML. It's all in tables, and it gets really tricky because you also have to account for device types, email clients. So Gmail versus, I don't know, Yahoo, if anybody still uses Yahoo, or, Outlook or whatever it is, things render differently. So it's a very specialized skill. So I typically, people will design in a graphic, just be careful, right? But you can blend graphics with the text you put in Klaviyo to make it look really nice.
I'm just trying to think what I've been doing. So what I've been doing on my end is using Canva and Trello, because it has some good templates, and then we make it, like I always, when we started, I looked at it on different size phones just to see what it looked like. So we use that, and then every image we put in the email, they're clickable too. Like we'll add the clickable, and then we have like the shop now button or the call to action button at the bottom or in between, and that's how we're getting some traction there. So as far as like, let's talk about open rates and click-throughs rates and all that good stuff. So since you've seen a lot of email, what do you consider a good open rate on your, when it comes to your list?
Yeah, so we're actually in a really interesting time because people are predicting the death of the open rate
Yeah.
because of whatever iOS 15, the iOS 15 update in the
15.
fall.
Yeah.
So, an open rate can depend on a segment. So your prospects, people who've never bought from you, are going to open less than people who have bought from you. Typically, I like to, if anything's under a 10% open rate, that tells me that there's something not quite right with the data tracking or engagement. Anything over 20%, I consider pretty good.
All right. I'm at 23 right now in the new store, and it's not segmented. It's just like generic still.
Yeah. So, and obviously, the more segmented you get, the more personalized you get, the higher your open rates go. However, open rates are not perfect. They get tracked by a tiny pixel at the bottom of your emails that's embedded there. And so when that pixel loads at open, so that depends on images being enabled in an email client. When that pixel loads is when they track and open. So if you have really code heavy emails, and sometimes you'll see in Gmail at the bottom of the email, you see those 3 dots and it'll say the message got clipped.
Yeah.
That pixel got clipped.
Oh, interesting.
So,
Okay. I didn't know that one.
Yeah. So that means that that if a customer opened that email, it might not register as an open. So, open rates, like I said, they're not perfect. And I tell everybody to like just look at your last 3 months worth of data, set a benchmark for your business, because people like to look at industry benchmarks. I mean, it's nice, but it's not really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every segment on a list can have a different benchmark. So I tell people to look at the last 3 months of your average open rates and set that as your personal benchmark, and then adjust to improve on from there.
All right. So if we have a 23% click-through rate, what's a decent click-through rate? Like meaning they click on the call to action on the email to go to the site. What's a good click-through rate there?
Yeah. So a click-through rate is clicks divided by number of emails sent. And I like to look at clicks divided by, or click to open rate, which is the clicks divided by opened emails. And I mean, anything over 10% is great.
Oh man, I'm lacking there. Mine sucks. Mine on that news store is I think it's like 1 point something. I knew it was bad, but I didn't know it was that bad.
Yeah,
But free email makes me money, so it's like it's great, so I'm doing something right,
I wouldn't worry too much about a low click-through rate, because I only say this because people sometimes hyper focus on the click-through rate, and that causes some short-term or short-sighted ways to improve click-through rates, like tease out what's tease in the email so they'll click through. Well, click doesn't always mean a conversion, right? Just like an open. Open is not going to immediately lead to a conversion. And so thinking about it in a holistic view, a global view, will help you serve your subscribers better and help with retention too of subscribers.
So if you have a low click-through rate, what is your trouble? What's the first thing you look at to try to troubleshoot and make it better? Obviously the copy. I mean, I'm looking at the copy when I'm doing testing some new things, but I'm just curious to see what your process is like.
So the first thing I look at is how visible is the CTA? What is the CTA and where is it? Right? Can I find it easily? Because people skim, right?
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised at how few or how many people hide their call to action in their emails.
Yeah.
You have to really dig for it. So that's number one. Number two is
mine's a huge button at the end of the email. Shop now or buy now or I want mine now. Stuff like that. I play with stuff like that all the time.
Exactly. And then how far is it from, below the scroll, essentially.
Right.
Again, if you have to keep scrolling to find it, it's going to be harder. And then the third thing is, how many calls to action are there? If you give people too many calls to action that are all equally weighted, you're overwhelming people with options, right?
Right.
So having a primary call to action, and then maybe a few supplemental ones, is a great place to start. But giving people too many choices can be really overwhelming, it's sort of that analysis paralysis thing, like you see too many things that you could be doing, and you're overwhelmed and not sure what to do.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I think I do 1 or 2 call to actions on each email right now. So like, because I don't want to overwhelm them too much, or like, click out of it. So here's the other question that I have. So one thing that I noticed in this niche that I went into, which is it's new to me, never dealt with it before, but it's huge and I wanted a piece of it. One thing that I noticed is that all my competitors, they have something on sale every day. It's bull. Like every day, 20% off, 40% off, 20, like, certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a partner in this new brand. And when we started, we're like, okay, we're going to do sales, but I'm going to treat it like everything else. Because when I do a sale, I want to mean it's a real sale.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked out perfectly because we just hit 1 year, even though we haven't been going all the way, and we keep tweaking stuff and working on stuff, and the paid advertising hasn't been huge or anything because we can't keep making changes. When we did the 1 year sale live, we said, like, this is it. You guys know we don't do sales. So when we do a sale, we mean it. And this is your chance. Like, I mean, we do others throughout the year, but we keep it a very minimal. We completely blew it out of the water. It was insane. Yeah. It was insane. So what I'm getting at, though, the trouble that I'm having is that, yes, we do put out new stuff like bi-weekly or stuff like that, but we want to keep everybody engaged. And I'm having a hard time. That's why I can't wait to hand it off to somebody, because I get overwhelmed with this.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time like picking out what to email about. Right. Yeah. So you can only email so much about like new stuff on here, or like this stuff it's here. Like, what do you do in that case when you don't have that ace ready to go, where it's like, this is on sale, 25% off or 40% off, take advantage of it? Like, what is your, how do you keep them coming back? Right. Because I subscribe to everybody, and I noticed that everything's on sale every day. That's why they keep sending an email out every day. So yeah. So how do you get around that? Because I find it extremely difficult to come up with ideas to keep everybody engaged. Because I mean, even if I don't get sales, I want to keep the engagement, so they're used to seeing the email engagement with it.
Exactly. And that's a great attitude to have, because like you mentioned, your competitors who are doing sales every day, discounts every day, I mean, they may be making revenue, but that doesn't mean they're profitable.
Right. Oh, I've seen it a million times. Oh, we did $1 million in sale. Okay, let's look at the ad account. Yeah, you actually lost money.
Yeah.
It's like, it's very deceiving.
Yeah. And it's like, and I get it, right? Like, those sales are a quick hit. They bring in the revenue. And if all you're looking at is revenue, then it's very short-sighted, right? Like, you are ignoring all the other factors, like you just mentioned.
I want to build super fans, which we already have super fans, but that's what I want to nurture that all the way.
Exactly. And that's, in the retention category. And if you're thinking about retaining your audience and your subscribers, you're going to think much more strategically, like you are. So if you are in a product-based business, you just have to find ways to essentially reposition your products depending on, whatever's going on. So seasons, right? We have a seasonality in terms of, weather and climate, but also, it's lake season right now in Michigan, right? Everybody's hanging out at the lake, or depending on wherever else your audience is, it's beach season. So how does that fit into your products? How are you inspiring or suggesting your products fit into somebody's lifestyle based on whatever's going on right now? And so that's one way, right? Like, giving people suggestions on how to use your products, how to restyle them or take care of them, or feel $1 million wearing them or using them.
Yeah.
So that's usually where I start with people. Like, how are you giving people ideas on how to improve their life with your products? And that might be, even like styling them differently, or just thinking about your products differently and how somebody can use them right now in their life. And it's more profitable, right, to do it that way, to position it around content. But the revenue doesn't always match, but the profitability does. So that's a hard line to walk with most people, because we don't have access to the same kind of numbers that a business owner does, right? We don't have access to the balance sheet to see what was a good return.
Right.
So typically people just see that revenue line and they're like, this is amazing,
Yeah, because even with like holidays and stuff like that, like we'll do like Black Friday just because it's Black Friday.
Mm-hmm.
But Black Friday I go hard, man. The online marketer in me takes over. I'm sending 5 emails throughout the day. I don't care, and I space them out 2 to 3. You know what was crazy? I didn't even think anyone unsubscribed from the list that day. I think if they did, it was only like 1 or 2 where it didn't even matter. Like they weren't even going to buy at that point.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I figured let's cut through the noise, man. And I told a story through email, just pounding them all day long.
Yep.
And because I know how my inbox looks like on Black Friday, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hard to stand out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, one campaign that I worked on for a client, they have an audience that's primarily women, and they sell snarky gifts. And during the pandemic, we were trying to figure out, okay, how do we keep people gift giving, right? How do we keep people buying gifts? And so every month I started doing a horoscope campaign that was like the perfect gifts for Aries this month, and just offering gift suggestions for birthdays, right? Like birthdays are always happening. People are always looking for birthdays and gifting opportunities for that, or gift ideas. And so like those are really popular. So it's just ways to figure out how to plug your offers with things that are top of mind for people.
That's cool. No, that's the creative side of it that I don't have the time to sit down and come up with, because it's not on my, I'm focusing too much on the ad side of things and everything else that comes with the business. So no, it's amazing. I like that. And how often do you like to email the list on an e-commerce store per se? Do you do it every day? Is it different for every brand? Is there twice a day? Because I noticed some of them competitors do like two times a day or 3 times a day, and then some only do it once a day. And then correct me if I'm wrong, but if I've been trying to figure out what's like the prime time to send that email out. And I don't even know it's because I haven't spent enough time inside Klaviyo looking at the analytics, but I can never find like I know an active campaign, I can see the times, the open times, but not in Klaviyo. So am I going crazy here, or is it in Klaviyo too? I just haven't seen it. I haven't seen
it. I haven't found it either. I haven't seen it in Klaviyo, but yeah, an active campaign you can pretty easily. So the thing about sending more emails is, every email you send is an opportunity to unsubscribe. So I have done testing around how many emails to send, and, sending more emails does bring in more revenue. Yes, but it also significantly increases the unsubscribe rate. So then you start chasing your tail with, okay, well, now I got to replace those subscribers. So I need to double down on my list generation efforts, right? Or my subscriber subscription efforts, right?
Right.
So now you've just created more work for yourself.
Right.
So I typically recommend people, if they have never emailed before, start with weekly, because you have to also get a process down, right? So you got to get that process figured out for actually getting an email out. So start with weekly, and then start increasing to once a day, and see what your audience does. If you are seeing consistent unsubscribes, and you don't have if you don't have a way to replace those subscribers easily, then back off. But it also depends It's not an all the time thing, right? You might increase your cadence over the holidays. You might pull back during, national crises,
Yeah.
uh, which we've been through several, right? Like,
Right.
we got a pandemic going on, and that news hit. Nobody wanted to hear about your products, and
Right.
so like it just depends on what's going on too. And then for Sundays and times, I have tested the crap out of those, and it's all over the map.
Yeah. I was going
And
to ask you, do you like to send, like, you have the option to send, to 20% throughout the day, or just all at once at, X amount, I found, for some reason, for this brand, I found that I've tried in the early in the morning, like everybody else does it. I tried it, and then I tried at 8:30 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. seems to be the sweet spot for this brand for some reason. I don't know
yeah,
why.
yep. And I've seen that too. Like some clients do really well with late at night. Some clients do really well with a lunchtime thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
And guys, if you're listening to this or watching this, I'm not saying everybody go out and do 8:30 p.m. Like every brand's different.
yeah, exactly.
So
Don't steal my time spot. Okay.
yeah. Don't get in my inbox. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm dead serious. I just don't want him to think that you pick
Yeah.
a time and that's it. No, I test all the time, but for some reason right now, 8:30 p.m. is the sweet spot. I don't know why.
Yeah. And I've seen, prospects prefer different times than customers.
Yeah.
So it's all over the map.
Well, the way I did it is, like, since I'm running the ads, I'm paying attention what time the sales are coming in the most, like when the biggest, revenue hours are. So I'm like, okay, most people are coming in through the ads at this time. Let's put two and two together. And that's how I
Yeah,
did it,
that's smart. That's really
Yeah.
smart.
So
Yeah.
that's how I did it.
Yeah. And that could be something you look at on your back end for your e-commerce store and see just in general, is there a time that people are placing more orders?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's definitely, it's a hard one, but I usually start like 10 a.m. That's where I usually start. And then, and also late night or evenings and see what works best. But yeah, there's so many factors that go into it. It's hard to really pinpoint it down.
That's awesome. All right, Emily, thank you so much for coming on. I'm not going to take much more of your time because we're out of time already. And see, I love these podcasts. Like when they go like this, it just fly by. So thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for so much for sharing all your knowledge with me and everybody watching and listening. Where can everybody find you?
Well, I'm on the internet. Don't want to brag, but
on the internets. Yeah.
You can find. I hang out a lot on LinkedIn, so feel free to look me up there. And then if you are interested in learning more about email marketing, I do have a free open rate guide with everything we talked about, how to boost your open rates. And you can find that at flourishcrit.com/open.
All right. And all links will be, of course, in the description so you can find her easily. Everyone, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I'll see you guys next time.